Welcome to the Meditation Podcast. You can find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. Find everything about me. Scan the QR code, go to rightcall.com. See my 6 podcasts along with my podcast coaching and my 2 school groups, one on podcasting and the other on brain fitness. If you're looking for virtual assistance, go to va.world. Today's guest has one of the most remarkable professional evolutions I've ever featured on the show. She began her journey as a project manager at Charles Schwab, and over the years transformed her life and her work into something profoundly different. She is now an intuition healer, global retreat leader, master shamanic breathwork facilitator, and sought-after keynote speaker. As a shamanic life coach and workshop leader, she blends her experience as a medical massage therapist, Usui, Reiki master, I don't know, did I butcher that? I know I asked beforehand.
Perfect.
An emotional release therapist. Through this unique integration of modalities, she's helped people resolve chronic pain and mysterious medical conditions at their energetic root. She's also a 16th-time #1 best-selling author, which is incredible, whose work continues to inspire audiences around the world. Please welcome Atlantis Wolf.
Thank you so much, Roy. I'm glad to be here.
No, I'm looking forward to it. So I suppose let's kind of start off, because I mean, what you're doing is incredible, but let's start off with your kind of career and then where you made the transition.
Sure, yeah. And there was some moves before Charles Schwab as well, because my degree is in civil engineering. I didn't want to be an engineer, but my dad basically said, you have to be an engineer. Your brother's not smart enough. I'm an engineer. We need another engineer in the family. So I graduated with a degree in civil engineering and English. I love English. I love words. I love reading, writing, obviously. And so I moved into doing environmental assessments, technical writing, and manual writing and things like that before eventually I moved into project management, which to me, you could think what you want about this. I just think of it as the mom at work, the professional mom, because it's up to me to make sure that things are moving forward and that people are feeling cared for and that we are just sort of getting along as we have this common goal. So it was really easy for me. I mean, motherhood is such an easy archetype for me to inhabit. I feel like that's pretty much what I've been doing my whole life. But it's a bridge. I feel that I was always a bridge. So between the technical and non-technical fields, I could walk across the bridge. I could explain technical concepts to the programmers. I could explain it to the executive board. I could explain it to the marketing department. I was always able to see this sort of holistic approach and talk to anyone and help them understand. So that all ended in me moving. I was in Baltimore, Chicago, wanting to move back to Cleveland. So with Schwab, it was easy because I was doing kind of the same thing. And I was making the executive sort of walkthroughs and then going and telling the computer people, this is where the changes that we need. And I was the only one who could do it. So it's kind of a funny thing, but as much as I was good at it, as much as I had a gift for it, as much as I was being paid well for it, it didn't fill me up. I felt like I was living in a beige cube, beige walls, beige carpet, beige people, and I didn't know what was on the other side for me. But I knew it was not my highest purpose. This can't be why God put me on earth. I specifically was thinking that for this year-long project I was part of, the sponsor fee disclosure project, just to be able to tell investors where all the fees are. And my mom died. And she had a long illness, and it was as terrible as you could possibly imagine. But part of that journey was me, someone who just has this very engineering, analytical, let's get it done, break it into steps approach. There was a woman there doing Reiki on her, laying her hands on her and allowing unconditional love to come through her hands. And I was in the room with her, just me, her, and the Reiki master at my mom's bedroom. And I blinked and I saw, with my eyes open, lucid, clear, sober, the Archangel Gabriel in her room as big as you can imagine, as if the corner of the room disappeared and it just went out right into heaven. And I never told anybody because it didn't fit. Who was I gonna tell? What was that going to be about? And so after she died, I was holding her hand when she died. I went through, I think, a normal amount of depression and numbness, but what came out of it was, I can't do this anymore. I need help. I need to do something else. So before I went to bed, I had gotten my kids ready, went to bed, I said a prayer, and I just asked God, I said, I'm not going to make it. I can't do this. I can't be this. There's something more for me. And I woke up the next morning and massage therapist was written on the pillow next to me. It was in cursive. It was white, sparkling letters. So I got up and I went to work and I quit my job. That was Thursday. There was a medical massage school starting Monday. The VP said, I can tell your mind is made up and the door is always open. 9 years ago, because I've been doing it ever since I've been doing massage work, and I'm just closing my practice to focus on my work as an intuition teacher. But 9 years ago, I went back for 6 months, took my kids to Disney World with the money, bought a new couch, bought a new TV, paid off everything, and I had both jobs. I was working both jobs at the same time. So I would work 12-hour days, 2 days a week at Schwab, and then 3 days a week on clients for 6 months. And I got to step back and see I'm really good as a project manager, but I'm better as a massage therapist. And now I can say again, I'm a great massage therapist, but I'm a much better intuition teacher. And I feel that now at 55, I have finally found the highest purpose for my life, which is to help people to feel what I call the other half of their sensibilities. We have these earthly sensibilities that see, taste, touch, but we have a whole second half, the heavenly faculties, faith, reason, willpower, imagination, intuition. These are things that can be cultivated so that we can walk between both worlds and live a full life. Because people often come to me saying, I feel like there's something I'm missing. There's some part of life I'm missing. I'm doing everything. I'm successful. I've got all the stuff. I've checked all the boxes. And I said, yeah, because you're living half of your life. There's a whole other half to experience. And that's usually where we start, at the beginning of a spiritual journey.
And I mean, that was a big jump to make. How was other people, your loved ones around you? I mean, obviously they were kind of going, what's going on here? Because, working with James Swabs and stuff like that.
I'll tell you what, the two most important people, my kids, because as a single mom, my kids were the most important thing. I sat down and I said to my son, so my son was about 7 years old, which means my daughter was 5 when this happened. And I said, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go be a medical massage therapist. And he said, what does that mean? I said, I'm going to help people get out of pain. And he looked at me and he said, so you're going to be a superhero? And I said, yeah, I'm going to be a superhero. He goes, that's great. So I told my daughter, and she's 5, so she's in kindergarten, he's in 2nd grade. And I said, I'm going to quit my job, be a medical massage therapist. And she said, does that mean we don't have to go to aftercare anymore? And I said, yes, that means you can come home after school and I'm going to walk you home. And she just said, great. When do we start to do that? Because from a child's standpoint, they still have both faculties. So they understand what they wanted more was my time. They were more happy I was going to be able to walk them to school, walk them home from school, not go to aftercare. They get more of me. And to a child, there's nothing more important than time with their parent. And one of the lessons I learned when my mom died, she was 59. She was not young. She was not old. She was young.
Oh, that's young, yeah.
And nobody turns 25 and thinks I'm halfway to the end. It's nobody. But what I realized in her death is that the only currency we have is time. And we don't know how much time we have until the end.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's kind of the way I live life. It's like, plan it that you could live to 150, but enjoy it that you could die tomorrow and that you won't regret it.
Exactly. Exactly.
So your journey as a therapist and massage therapist, like, when did you realize? I mean, you're being taught how to do this, but obviously, because I mean, there's some people, they have a gift, and there's others, they're just kind of giving you a massage. When did you when did you realize you had a gift? When did it kind of go, there's something going on here? I'm kind of feeling something different that most people
Yeah.
would feel.
Um, it's funny because when it, I, I'm almost humble to a fault. Things have to happen and happen and happen before I acknowledge that maybe that's not something that everybody has as their own experience. So after going through school, which it was an accelerated program, so 9 months in the program, and I started working out of my house and just had a few people. And every time I would work on people, I could feel my hands get hot. They would get really warm. And at the end, I would just lay my hands on people just as sort of a blessing. I send them everything that they need. And every time I did that, I just sort of, it was like on the top of my shoulders. I could just feel there was like a prickly, not prickly in a bad way, but just sort of, if somebody put their hands very close to your shoulders but didn't touch you, you'd still be able to feel something. And I kept having that experience. And so at one point, I just said, a little frustrated maybe, I just said, whoever is here, I'm not afraid of you. Just show me who you are. And I saw 12 figures around my table. And they were just people that I didn't know. But I thought, okay, whatever is happening, there is a spiritual component to all the physical work I'm doing. And if I open up to it, I imagine that there's got to be more behind it. There must be more that I can see, more ways I can help people. And so I just started to lean into it personally. I didn't tell anybody. You have to understand this was very, very much a private matter for years. But there were a couple times when I would see a very distinctive person. This wasn't just sort of, you know, this wasn't just a shadow. They always look like they're drawn in chalk. So if you can imagine black, something like a dark space, and then a chalk sketch of a person, that's usually what it looked like at the beginning for me, because now I see very clearly into the spiritual side. But there was one person who was very specific. It was a very specific figure. She had long hair. She kind of looked like a hippie from the 60s. And I asked her, I said, is there something you want me to tell this person on the table? She said, tell her I'm here. And my client, I've become close friends with all my clients. I've had over 3,500 clients, all on repeat business, no marketing. And I said, okay. And I told her, I said, there's someone here, and are you open to a message from them? She wants me to tell you what she looks like. And after I described her, she said, that's my cousin. That was my closest friend when I was young, and she committed suicide. And I've always felt like she was in my life since she committed suicide. We were so, so close, and she just started crying. And that was the moment that I immediately moved into a space of sacred responsibility, that it was up to me to be careful with what I was seeing, to ask questions, and to make sure that I was a good conduit, a good bridge between the people that came to me for help and the people on the other side that were trying to communicate with them. And I got as serious as a nun about it. Very serious, very, clean, made sure I was eating a clean diet, make sure I wasn't thinking any thoughts other than for the person on the table. And because I approached it that way, I saw more and more things. I saw more people, more ancestors. I saw people's pets. They would come in and I would see their dog with them. And I would say, did you ever have a dog? Oh, yeah, but, they died years ago. I said, maybe they're still with you. No, that's ridiculous. That's impossible. Whether or not you believe spirits are with you, they are. And my friend Emil likes to say, you don't have to believe me, but it's true. And that moved into seeing, believe it or not, aliens from other planets, first incarnations of people, different things that were hard to describe. And it just kept opening. But I would always see things. I wouldn't hear anything. Sometimes they would talk and I'd say, I can't hear. On the other side, I can see. So I would ask them to write it on a chalkboard. I would imagine a chalkboard and have them write the word that they wanted me to give to the other person. And there were plenty of times when I said, is there a message? And they would say, no. No. Because they knew that that person wasn't ready to hear a message. They knew the person just came for a massage, didn't need to know anything else. And I was there to say, yeah, whatever you need. It's not about me. It's about the person on the table. It's about the person I'm working with in my program. So it has to be, people be open to it. And it has to be a message that they're ready to receive.
And with the other modalities that you've done and the Reiki and everything,
Oh, yeah.
how was it all kind of connected and why you kind of kept evolving?
I think I kept evolving because I feel like that's our natural state. I feel like our natural state is to blossom and expand forever and ever and ever. As long as I can find new things to learn, I'm going to keep learning. So, for example, I learned the Usui Reiki system because I could learn it from William Lee Rand, who wrote the International School for Reiki Training Manual. And I wanted to get it from him because he was anointed. If you know about Reiki, they say a candle that lights another candle. And you will get your sort of lineage when you take Reiki. And you always take it back to Tanaka, who was the Japanese woman who brought Reiki from Japan to America. And he had a direct lineage with her. So I wanted to have my candle lit by her through him. So it was important for me to find someone of high integrity. So I learned that, and Reiki is very much just the laying of hands. When you read about the Bible, the laying of hands, it's just unconditional love coming through, nothing about you, everything about healing, and letting it come right through. The other modalities like the kinesio taping, so if you see tape on basketball players or Olympic athletes and things like that, that also was invented by a Japanese man, a chiropractor, Kenzo Kase, and you can use it to move the lymphatics. So it appealed to me as a scientist to move, for example, if you had a wrist injury, you could move the swelling away from the injury back to your heart so that it would heal faster. He designed it because it was a way for people not to have to come to so many chiropractic appointments. I used it because my mom had lymphedema. They removed lymph nodes out of her sort of arm and armpit. So she couldn't use her arm because it swelled up. They took too many when they did the surgery. So she couldn't wear a lot of clothes. She couldn't use her hand very well. So I used it to help drain that area. The lymph is sort of the return fluid. You have 5 liters of blood that go out of your heart. 3 liters comes back, in the veins. The rest of it, the 3 liters that comes back, that's the easy way. There's 2 liters of fluid that need to get back to your heart every minute. And it's through bending and movement and moving and breathing through the lymphatics. So I did that to be able to help her and to be able to help all my clients that had lymphedema or lymph issues. Because moving through my journey, I attract people who are going through that same journey. Because I helped my mom through cancer, I attracted clients that had cancer and needed help. They needed someone to be there. The shamanic work came because I was at the gathering of shamans, which was a get together of different spiritual teachers. And I did a shamanic breathwork ceremony and had a massive experience with breathwork. Ridiculous. And it was funny because I thought she was doing it wrong. I had trained with Sandra Ingerman, who is a very traditional shaman. She lives in New York City. She's a psychologist. So a journey is usually drums. So you have any kind of a hoop drum, rattles, and you move into a deep, deep meditation. this lady was using a drum and doing holotropic breath work with music and people on mats. I thought, this is stupid. She's doing it wrong. She doesn't know what she's talking about. But where else was I going to go? I was there. I was in the room. So I started doing the holotropic breathing, allowed the music to carry me. And I had the experience of, imagine if you watch 7 movies, one after the other. So over the course of the hour, it was like 7 different movies. Every time the music changed, I saw different things. I experienced different things in my body. And it went from everything from ballroom dancing to a past life in Atlantis to being able to see the music. I could see the music as if it was being drawn in the sky, to being called into Archangel Michael's army, going through this golden doorway. It was the craziest thing I had ever experienced. And this was with breath and music. And because I stood up and noticed that the pain that was in my low back was gone, even though I had no intention of letting it go, I realized this would be incredible for my clients if they were open to it. So I walked over to her and said, I have to know how to do this, and started to study with her, and studied with her for years. So I would do private breathwork events, and then I would do group breathwork events. And that is where the transformation really kicked in. That's where people would have these huge breakthroughs, and they would give up their stutter. They would give up not having fear of flying. They would be able to sleep. They would be able to make peace with their past and their trauma. And so for me, it was really the breath combined with the massage, because I would be putting my hands on them, doing Reiki. And then if they had a tightness, I could move, because I would understand as a medical massage therapist, oh, let me put something under their sacrum. Let me put something under their heel. And so it was an evolution of adding and being open to more and more ways to help people in a shorter amount of time. So if I do massage work, that's only one thing. That's one thing I can do. And there's a scope of practice for that. And it's a license. I'm licensed by the state medical board. When I'm doing breath work, it expands the possibilities, because now I'm working with a person's energy. They're breathing, they're vocalizing, they might be yelling, they might be crying, they might need to move, shift. And it's such a much more intimate experience, because you're being bathed by sound and moved into a place that is a sacred healing space where spirits can come in, ancestors can come in, animals, all kinds of power animals and things like that, because it's a more open space. The massage is very one-to-one. The Reiki, it's a recipe. The Kinesio taping, it's very specific. It's physics. The breath work is that mystery between the physical world and the spiritual world, when the bridge between them is open. And that's a surprise to a lot of people, and a beautiful way to introduce them to living in both worlds.
Beautiful. And I'm going to delve into that further, but I just want to go back when you were on about the tape, because I mean, I've seen it here and everything. Is there a certain type of tape? Because like what I've learned in life, there's always people that copy stuff. And is it that it has to have ingredients in it, or how does it work? And how do you know which one is right? Because I've seen tape even in this, like Lidl and Aldi and things like that, and you're going, it's $5. Is that good?
No, it's crap. It's absolute crap. So the Kinesio Tape, Kinesio, is trademarked. And the Kinesio Tape is from Dr. Kase. So on one side, it's sort of it's like a cotton fabric. It's a stretchy cotton fabric. And on the other side, there's a mastic, and it has a wave pattern. So you'll see that wave pattern, and you can cut the tape in such a way to increase or decrease the amount of movement of that lymph. And that's where the training comes in. The marketing director for Kinesio Tape left. And they thought they took the patented design and they developed KT tape. KT tape is inferior because they don't use that hypoallergenic mastic, the gluey stuff on the other side. So people have reactions to this tape. Not all of them, but some of them. It goes down from there as far as quality, integrity, and to have that very specific pattern. So the rock tape and all the knockoff tapes, you don't know what's in that glue and you're putting it on your skin. And your skin is your largest organ. So it's going to react if you're putting garbage on top of it. The key is if you were trained, and it's not rocket science, but you have to know where the lymphatics are because you're trying to help something go from where it is back to your heart. So if you know the lymphatic system, as a medical massage therapist or as anybody who's trained, then you know how to do it. But if you just take the tape, cut it, and put it on top of something as if it was a Band-Aid, it's not going to work. But if you can look at it, because it really is physics, it's just moving from an area of sort of low pressure to high pressure, and you're trying to influence that flow, that fluid. And you can't do that with poor quality stuff. It's not going to work. It's not going to be as effective. Also, Kinesio tape is not expensive. That's the thing. It's not $100 a roll, but it certainly is. The beautiful thing about it is that it is inexpensive and it can help people, for example, who can't afford knee surgery, knee replacement surgery, or shoulder replacement surgery. I use it for plantar fasciitis. I use it for frozen shoulder. I use it for strains and sprains and things like that. It is an exceptional tool, and it's simple physics. It's worth finding somebody who knows how to use it. But his intention was to give regular people a way to be out of pain. And it's such a beautiful mission that he started it with that it's a little heartbreaking to see people knock it off and say, I could put a wave and glue behind a piece and say, give me $5.
And, obviously somebody that has the skill set and understands it. Because I think a lot of times people, they're trying to put it on themselves, whether it's the shoulder or something like that.
So the funny thing about that is part of the training is we had to put it on wrong so that we would understand. And they did it on the neck because the neck has a carotid artery and the azygos process, which is your backup bloodstream. So if you put it, for example, from your ear down, that's one reaction. And then if you put it from your shoulder up, that's another. And immediately we would start to get nauseous, have headaches and everything like that. And they did that on purpose because they wanted people to take it seriously and they wanted people to understand you're affecting a person's anatomy and physiology. Be careful. If you don't know, don't do it. If you're guessing, don't do it. Ask your teacher, ask another practitioner, get some help. But you can, it's not like, believe me, it's not like you're going to kill somebody, but you could certainly cause somebody to pass out and you could certainly increase pain instead of decrease it. So yeah, it's worth being careful.
No, excellent. No, it's good to know. So going back to the breathwork, because
Yeah.
I've been to different events, like Mind Valley, so I've been at A-Fest and there. So I've experienced about 10 different types of breathwork. And like one side, it was Niraj Nayak. He does the Soma breathwork. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. But we were meant to kind of, the owner of that vision, like he said, you need to meet Roy and me, because we both kind of exposed stuff. He was the renegade pharmacist and stuff like that. So that's why he was trying to connect us. So we ended up meeting on the kind of second last day, just on the golf buggy. He was passing, just sat next to him, and we were just chatting away. And we found out, you're the guy who's supposed to meet. So there was about, I don't know, 8 of us or something like that. And he brought us into the room and he done a breathwork. And I could see colorful visualizations. It was like incredible. And I've done some stuff. I get nothing. There's other ones. I done one on a beach with another Australian couple, and they felt like birth. It felt like I was being born. And I've done stuff with Wim Hof as well. And like I'd encourage everybody to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's And like you said, sometimes you kind of think you know something, or sometimes you just expect it, and you go, "Nah, this is different than what I've done before." And then you're like, "Whoa!" It's like it's a pity it's not more. I think in the States, you kind of like here now in Poland. I mean, it's not that easy to get it, and it's like
Oh.
I had such a fantastic experience
Mhm.
when I done these different things, and like I would love that everybody could just decide, like the way people go to mass, whatever religion they're in, that you could do the exact same. Because if it was like, oh, let's do our Sunday breath work, that'd be fun. For me, that'd be like, that's fantastic, because you know that you come out of it feeling fantastic. And as you said, you pin your back. And I mean, when there's a facilitator as well, because that was something that used to kind of, I know some people, they're able to do it, they're able to know online and things like that and see how to interact, but there was others that were kind of doing heavy stuff, which is
Yeah.
when you experience, as you know, traumas come up and stuff, and I've seen people screaming next to me, and then they realized. So that was my fear when people were kind of pushing, if they didn't know what they were doing, because unfortunately, sometimes people, I don't know if to say have they a gift, but they know that
Yeah.
there's a market for this, I can do this, and then
Yeah.
not know how to even if they're in person, not know how to help people. So just maybe touch on that, because there's a lot of
Oh,
people doing that. Yeah.
yeah, I have so much to say about that. Um, breath work is shockingly potent. There's no drugs. There's no you're activating biology that's within you that has always been in you. For as long as people have been alive, there's been breath work. This is something that is so integrated into our biology that we can get very heady about it and think, I'm just going to go do breath work. But the problem is if you're not with a facilitator who's holding space, and I'm not saying it has to be me, but I'm saying it does have to be a facilitator with integrity. And you, by the way, as soon as you said, I wish we had that in Poland, I was like, great, I have a passport. I will be at Poland. I will bring breath work. But it's about the intention that's being set. So me, I've been doing this for years. I've been doing it with small groups, big groups, everything like that. I know I can hold a space for 40 people and it's a good event. But at the same time, I held the intention, I had the experience, and I know the most important thing is to ask. Don't let anything happen in this breathwork event that I can't handle. Make sure people pop. If you're talking about people that scream, people cry, people need to be rebirthed. There's all these things that I know how to do and handle. My intention is always don't give me anything I can't handle, and don't let everybody pop at the same time so I could go around. Now, there are plenty of people that I know personally who are not great breathwork facilitators. The difference between them and me is they can get you high. I can help you transform. It's not hard to get high off of a breath work. It's not hard to we do holotropic, which is in through your nose, out through your mouth, and you create this circular breathing. And it's to drumming, which is 60 beats per second, the heartbeat of the earth. A big drum, already calming your nervous system, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, which is calming your nervous system. And at some point, you do take off. It's like an airplane off the runway. You do take off. I like to say breathe until you're surprised. Anybody who's over there and they're treating it like an air pump where they're just in, out, I usually go over to them, put my hand on their chest, and allow them to just exhale, and then they'll take off. But I'm licensed by a medical board. I have years of experience. I'm intimately familiar with trauma. I know the signs of trauma. I know when people need to be rebirthed. There are plenty of people who don't even know the signs. And exact breathwork is like other modalities. People have shown up at my table after they've done ayahuasca on a weekend. They thought they could be like a type A personality, C-suite, go, 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 do ayahuasca on the weekend and go back to the C-suite. And they're ruined. They had to take disability. They didn't know who they were. They couldn't put thoughts together for 3 months. And they came to me to say, what can I do? Well, the first thing you have to do is, what was your intention going into that ayahuasca ceremony? And she said, I thought it would be fun. Ayahuasca is the highest plant medicine on the planet. It's the grandmother. We say, are you called to do ayahuasca? I'm not. I don't need to. I have fantastic events with breath and music. But people, same thing with mushrooms. People have come to me and said, I don't know what happened. I did a mushroom journey and all of a sudden afterwards, I can't sleep. I can't sleep for more than 3 hours. They had a trauma come up, that they were abused in their sleep as a child, and they had lived with that for years. But because they did plant medicine and opened that up, they weren't prepared for anything after. I like to say, I'm not going to just get you high and say goodbye. It's breath work, and then it's integration. What came up for you? How do you feel about it? Let's journal about it. Let's look at it. Let's role play about it and follow up and make sure that they're okay. I can look into somebody's eyes and I can tell if they're still altered, they're still in the breath work, they're still high. You have to look into every single person's eyes if you have integrity when you leave them after breath work, because you'll know eyes are the window to the soul. You'll know if they're okay. If they're not okay, you have a responsibility as a facilitator to care for them. That's the sacred contract you made when you said, I'm a facilitator. I'm going to let the Creator come through me to be a vessel, but I'm also going to be responsible for this person and make sure I bring them back into their body. So people think breathwork's not a big deal. They have a big experience. And frankly, most people have trauma. Most people have trauma in their life. Most people have something they bury, they repress, they push down, they don't think about. You can't get away with that forever if you're going to be doing breath work. That dance is a dance with your soul, and your body remembers everything that has ever happened to you. So if you want to look at that, I feel like this is the best, safest way to go. Again, no drugs, no medication, no side effects. There's no side effects. You're breathing. You're in charge of the gas pedal and the brake. Breathe more and deeper. Pull back. Breathe a little less. You're in control.
What I've seen with kind of the different events that I get from, I get to connect with a lot of people that I've never done the ayahuasca, but I know a lot of people that did. But what I have come across is it's like that becomes an addiction with some people as well. Some is like they have to do it a few times a year. And even with the breath work as well, when it's like the tripping kind of, they have to do that all the time. And I don't think they've ever experienced release. And because then you feel, like I did DMT once, and it was in it was with a facilitator. There was over 20, it was in Costa Rica, there was over 20 of us there. And it was like an evening, we done it. And I felt like that everything was connected. I could see everything in, I don't know, they call it 4D or whatever. And that was it. I never needed to do anything again. I was like, okay, I get it. And that was beautiful for me. But I think the main thing was I totally trusted the person. And there was also somebody there that wasn't doing it, even though there was about 20 of us there. So you knew you were in a safe place.
Yes. And you can feel that. You can feel that in your body, that you're in a safe place. I believe you would not have had that experience if you didn't feel safe.
And for those, like, what's going on in people that they just, like, say the ayahuasca, that they feel that this is something for me, and they're like, I get different experiences all the time, but how I know it's not good is because you see them through the social media. You know that they're going through roller coasters of life and they're not in a good place.
No.
And is it breathwork will actually be something that will help them if they have a proper facilitator that can kind of, I suppose, release the trauma?
So one of the most complimentary things anyone ever told me was a man who did breath work for the first time. I get a lot of newbies. I'm the easy person that you can start a spiritual journey with. You could do your first breath work, your first sort of foray into spiritual things. But he did his first breath work, and he is a psychologist, and he's focused on men in trauma and sexual abuse specifically. And he came up after and said, "This is better than 5 years of therapy." And he's a therapist. He's a psychologist. And he said, "I don't think it's the breath work. I think it's you. I think that you have the power to create a space that is so sacred and so powerful that people can move through more with you than with other modalities." And I don't say that to toot my own horn. I say that to express that it's possible, that breathwork is so beautifully designed, and particularly this breathwork ceremony that I do, because you are coming into a space and being held in so many different ways. It's not just by my energy, it's the energy that I hold. So you could think of it as a globe or a circle. But I believe that people who are ready to move through and have that final release, breathwork is the safest place to do that. Because you can move into your body, you can express and get that energy out of your body so that you can finally look at what you're afraid of. When you say people are on that roller coaster, in my experience, it's because they're afraid to look at something. They're afraid to look at abuse, trauma, a loss of power, something that they did that they have trouble living with. They betrayed themselves, they betrayed someone else. And so they'll do anything not to look at it. But they can't avoid it forever. It's not possible. Your body keeps the score, your body knows what's going on, and mentally you're just running away from yourself. You're fighting a civil war. And eventually, so I have two minds about that. I helped somebody one time who said that they'd been to 10 massage therapists and they didn't find relief. I worked on them, they found relief, and I said, "Great, I know what I'm doing and this and this and this." And he called me the next day and said, "I don't want to make another appointment with you. I don't think you're the therapist for me." And what I realized, and what was confirmed by a book written by Carolyn Mace called Defy Gravity, is that not everyone wants to heal. They identify with their trauma. They identify with their wound. They go around with this big badge that says, "I was abused. I was wrong. Injustice lives here." They don't want to give it up because they're getting so much social media credibility. They're getting so much help from people around them. Imagine if you didn't have to do anything because you were so traumatized. "Oh, I can't bring food over to that person and help them. I'm still living with so much trauma. I don't even know how I get out of bed sometimes." I'm not talking about clinical depression. I'm talking about people who are connected and identify. Part of their personal identity is their wounds. And everyone knows that's the person who was left. That's the person things don't work out for. There's the one whose life is always a mess. They become identified with it. You want to get out of that? No problem. Show up, 3 sessions, let's go. But the problem is, not everybody wants to heal. They like being high. They like finding different ways to be out of their body. They like to be in an altered state. They think it's fun and that it's just a game and a joyride. But as soon as they come off of it, they still have the same problems that they did. It didn't fix anything because they never looked at their problem in the first place, you know?
I've also seen situations where a person, has addictions based on, their life experiences, and their spouse was kind of helping them. And when they were getting better, the spouse didn't want them to get better. And I see
Nope,
that it's
nope.
strange that you would think, but they like that that they're their comfort blanket, let's call it.
Yep, exactly. And that's their identity. So look at people and look at how they identify. If you ask somebody that you haven't met, "Hi, how are you?" And they say, "Oh, John's doing terrible today and I had to do this for him and then he left all this. Your whole identity, you've given all of your power to the person who's broken. And your identity is, I fix the broken person. But there's plenty of people that live like that. And there's plenty of people that don't want to live a different way. They just don't show up for breath work because they don't want to change. They like staying the same. They like staying broken, and they want to keep the people around them broken. And that happens a lot. We go through that in the 6-month program. It goes through the elements, the water, earth, fire, and air, because the fire is all about transformation and grief. If you change your life, there's a grief process for the person who you were, who is metaphorically dying. For example, let's say that you use this process to quit smoking. The fire piece, when you walk through fire before the air, you have to understand you're not going to be friends with the people you used to smoke with. The people you took a smoke break with, that shared story, shared social sharing, that's gone because you've decided to make a different choice. It could be the healthiest choice, the best reasons, but understand there's something that's dying in order for you to transform. And when you understand that, the transformation will be permanent.
And that actually happens. I've seen that in life with even people that are into gaming. They get out of the gaming or alcohol, of course, and all you meet up, even if it's the weekend thing. But if you kind of realize, hey, this isn't really serving me, I don't want to be kind of, spending the weekend just drinking.
Yeah.
The friendships kind of end, and then you bring nicer people into your circle. But some people are afraid to do that because they're like, oh, we're friends, we should be friends for life kind of thing. And it's like,
No, you should be friends with people who want to evolve in the same way that you evolve, and stay there, because one, it's going to be more interesting. Otherwise it's like, wow, we've been sitting here for 5 years doing the same thing every Saturday, and if we're getting drunk and then recovering on Sunday, is this what we really want to do? I mean, when we die, do we want to look back and say, yeah, I spent 25 years doing this, or do you want to just have a different experience? I want to experience as much as possible. I want to see what else is possible. I love holding space for people because I've been through so much transformation in my life, and I love who I am. And I couldn't have imagined, never would have imagined, when my mom was dying, when I didn't know what was going to happen, when I was alone with my kids, when the world felt like it was over. I mean, if I didn't have kids, I seriously doubt I would still be here. My mom and I, we used to say that we were one soul in 2 bodies. I lost what I felt like was half of my soul when she died. And thank God I had children and someone to say, Mom, can you get up, make me breakfast and let me, give me a hug and do all the normal things that children do. But the real story that I want to tell people is that your life can be more than you could possibly imagine as you're standing here now. Wherever you are in your life, it doesn't matter. Even if you're successful, even if you feel like you've made it, the nature of life is constant and relentless expansion forever and ever. There's more out there for you to experience. And that, to me, is what gets me out of bed every morning. There's always more to experience, more ways to work between the spiritual and non-spiritual. In the shamanic world, we say between the ordinary states and the non-ordinary states. Or like I was saying, between the earthly faculties and the heavenly, the celestial faculties. It never ends. And it's fun. It's so much fun to see how can we all evolve together into these spiritual beings anchored in a physical body. It never ends.
No, absolutely. And with, like, say, governing bodies or all these, just the World Health Organization, how are they embracing breathwork? Are they kind of, because it's taking money out of the,
Yeah.
the big pharma kind of thing?
You know, health care is really more crisis care. It's just designed so that when you've made so many choices that you end up with a heart attack, or, if the end product of all of your choices is bad health, then healthcare will step in and give you pills and give you ideas and things like that. But because breath work is so powerful, it's not something that's supported by the medical system, because you can, and I've seen this from experience, you can move through your medical issues. And again, I'm speaking from experience. This is not theoretical. I have seen people overcome lifelong, we're talking 30-year back pain in one breathwork event. I've seen people move through finding out exactly why they have pain in their chest, in their shoulder, plantar fasciitis, all the circulation issues and things like that. So the medical community, and I've tried to get in, I'm in Cleveland. I've tried to get into the Cleveland Clinic. I've tried to do breath work for doctors. They're too busy. It's a factory. It's just this revolving door factory of, surgical salesmen and cardiac doctors with pills. So it's not that I've given up. I mean, I'm here. Breath work isn't going anywhere. Facilitators aren't going anywhere. But you look back to yoga. People thought yoga was really weird in the 60s, and now it's everywhere. So as we move into the new age, I think that we, the people who are evolving, are leaving the medical world behind, because we're finding out that through breath work, through plant medicine, through informed choices, there's a lot of choice involved in your health. You get to make a choice if you want to get up, go for a walk, pick up something heavy, clean up your diet. As we move more into choices, I think the medical system is going to evolve as well into something that we wouldn't recognize right now. I mean, you get into a car accident, you want to go to the emergency room, but that's not what our system is built on. Our system is built on crisis, managing your crisis that no one really gave you information about until it was too late.
So there was like global retreats, but there was something that I saw and I thought, oh, I like that. Spiritual tourist. I thought, oh, that's a nice one.
Yeah. So you remember we were talking about the people that do ayahuasca and then, they're up and down. So in the spiritual community, we make fun of those people by saying that they're a spiritual tourist, that they just have their list. And it's like, I did ayahuasca, I did iboga, I did mushrooms, I did, breath work. I did like all the things in all the right places. We make fun of them and say spiritual tourist. So this is my way of reclaiming the phrase spiritual tourist, because what I mean is, let's go to a sacred site, and the whole world is sacred, and connect with the land, connect with the history, connect with what is there for us, and stay in really comfortable lodging, eat really good food, and shop the local economy. There's no reason why a spiritual retreat can't be fun, can't also include good food, good place to stay. It doesn't need to be a vision quest where we're laying on rocks for 3 days and we're living on water. And, that's beautiful. That's not what I do. So I like to say it's both. There's a spiritual component and there's a tourist component. I'm going to buy a t-shirt or a thing or a keychain or something to put on my backpack. But I also recognize the whole world is sacred. And so it's great to connect with, what is the history? Why is this here? What was here before this? What formed this? Let's talk about how you feel. People often say they feel called to my retreats, and then get there and they'll remember a past life that they had there. That happened on my last trip in England. I go to England every September. This lady was laying in this sacred site, Avebury, one of the oldest stone circle outcroppings in the world. And you could tell, I could see in her face, she was just having this like expanded experience. And again, this is just laying on the land. This is not plant medicine. This is just, let's go see what's there for us. And she stood up and walked over to me and she said, I was here before. She said, I was here with you. I said, yeah. Mm-hmm. She said, we built this place. I said, mm-hmm. Yeah, we did. She's like, how long ago was that? And she wanted to go over to look at the plaque. And I said, without looking at the plaque, I want you to just feel How long ago do you think we were here? Just, you're on that land. We were here before. Assume that's true. Assume that's real for a moment. Just move into the imagination and ask yourself. And she said, I think it was 4,000 years ago. And she went over to the plaque and it said 3,900 years ago is what they estimated. We are able to experience so much more than just the five senses, and pulling people out of their everyday routine, taking care of their food, taking care of their need to find a safe place to sleep, and holding them in a space allows all of those faculties to come alive, to wake up to the senses that are sleeping in your everyday life.
I'm just curious because I mean, obviously, when you go to that, you can kind of touch in and have a feeling with it. With Stonehenge, I had seen things where they made that, but that it was nearby, that there was an original Stonehenge that was there that had the energetic field. I'm just curious, did you hear anything about that and how true that is?
I've been to Stonehenge a couple times, and it's nice to go at the solstice because they take down the ropes so you can actually be there. That is like a hyper tourist place. So all the energy that was there has been definitely like tapped down into the ground. But yeah, there's Stonehenge, there's Woodhenge. You know, there's thousands of stone circles all over the United Kingdom. So there are many places, but I would not say that that is a spiritual center. I would say that in particular is a tourist place, which is adorable and nice and easy to get to, and it's well laid out. But if you want to have an experience, go to some place at sunrise, because the spiritual energy has had time to fill back in overnight, and allow the sun rays at the beginning of the day to hit your eyes, which activates a different part of your brain, and then lay on land. Any land that you feel called to. That's where you will find the spiritual energy. First rays of light in your body, and lay right on the land.
Excellent. So this has been fascinating, and I know I'll have to get you back. But you might just let people know the services that you're offering, because I know you're going to do the breathwork and retreats and stuff, but you might just let the people know the different services that you have.
Oh, sure. Yeah, thank you. And I would love to come back. I mean, I have stories upon stories depending on how, where you want to go in the spiritual, like, well, how did you do this? How did you do that? And, you know, I'd love to come back and tell you the story about how a car phased through my car. That was one of the craziest things that's happened to me. But the easiest way to get a hold of me is to go to my website, atlantiswolf.com. I have the Intuition Academy, which is a 6-month program where I take people through the elements, the Jungian archetypes, and I teach them 12 intuitive techniques so that they can wake up their own intuition. I also do breathwork events, so I do local events, and I am hired to do breathwork at retreats. So if breathwork sounds like something you want to do, you can hire me, and I will do a 5-hour breathwork event at your retreat, which I love to do, and I love to travel, and I have a passport. So believe me, it doesn't need to be in the United States. It doesn't need to be in Ohio, where I am. I have done breathwork around the world, including Egypt and Mexico and Mount Shasta and all these different places. And then the sort of spiritual tourist site is also there. I do a yearly event outside of Oxford and England. And then I do different ones depending on where the ladies want to go, because they're ladies' retreats. So if you have 8 women and they want to go somewhere and they need a retreat leader, I also do that. I would be more than happy to meet with people and say, here's what I do. Here's the system that I use to make sure everybody feels cared for. There's enough sleep. There's enough activity. There's a nice balance between those. But the easiest thing to do, go to my website. You can book a call. You can send me an email. All the information is there. I'm starting to flesh out my spiritual tourists page. So I'm going to be adding more and more photo albums just so people can see where I've been. And there's testimonials and all the beautiful things on there. And then, of course, Instagram, Dragon Medicine Woman, and LinkedIn.
Oh, excellent. I'll make sure I'll put the links both on the audio and the video. But I look forward to having you back because thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm sure we can do a few on all the different things that you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, Roy. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
No problem at all. So that's all for the Meditation Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. Find everything about me. Scan the QR code. Go to roycollin.com. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends. Until next week, take care.